Jake, everybody knows the only way to be good at Commander is to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on every single deck, right?
That is what I've heard when I have gone out on the streets to find out from the folks on the streets. And the resounding idea is that you need to spend a lot of money.
Let's take a look at the 8 most expensive commanders in EDH and judge them harshly. And the video starts right now.
Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We're going to talk about the 8 most expensive commanders in EDH, why they're expensive, hint, scarcity, reserve list, and if they're even good. But before we get into it, if you would hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, the YouTube stuff.
Yes, go do some YouTube stuff for us. And even if we aren't your favorite duo, do it for us anyway.
Let's get into these cards. Most expensive commanders, Jake. We've got 8 of them in this video, and let's background this a little bit. 6 of them are reserve list. 7 of them are reserve list, and 1 is a complete scarcity play. So all of the prices of these cards are artificial, but 7 of them can never be reprinted.
We have cards that range anywhere from $200 all the way up to $500, and then depending on condition, who the hell knows.
Rasputin Dreamweaver is going to get us started here. A blue, a white, and 4 other for a summon legend, 4/1, power 4, toughness 1. You put 7 counters on Rasputin when it comes into play, and you can remove a counter to prevent a damage to Rasputin or add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. That's at instant speed. You can just do it. And you put 1 counter on Rasputin during your upkeep if he started the turn untapped. You can't have more than 7 of these counters on Rasputin at any time. So, very strangely designed card. It's got some interesting abilities on it. But I think if we were to see this reprinted nowadays, it would not be very whelming. It would be quite underwhelming. I do like the ability, though, to pull 7 colorless mana off of this crazy legend.
Yeah, I think so as well. And that is why Rasputin found its way at the helm of an Eldrazi deck, if you can believe it. And there's like this Rasputin Eldrazi kind of thing. Yeah, the card is very specific. His wrist looks like it hurts. It looks like he's holding his staff in such a way where it's, I want to like help him.
He's angry. Somebody really pissed him off. They said his orange robe didn't look cute, and he's like clenching up and squeezing his staff, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna prevent a damage or make an Eldrazi.
He's like, get me away from these giant like lily pads in the sky. I've had enough today.
Pretty sure that's death and torture behind him, but yeah, lily pads.
Oh, is that what it is? All right. Anyway, Rasputin is a very powerful card. It is the most expensive on this list, and it is, again, because of scarcity. If you are in these colors, you could probably find a commander that's going to be a little bit more powerful, that's come out in more modern Magic the Gathering sets, but it is, again, a very specific effect. And if you did want this effect, this is pretty much the only spot that you're going to find it in these colors. And that is going to be pretty similar with a lot of the cards that are on this list. But yeah, just kicking things off with Rasputin there. What do you think about Rasputin? Let us know.
I think Emery of the Lock is a decent comp. It's not blue-white. It is only blue, but it is sort of this mana reduction, adding mana. It would be artifact-centric, and so it would be a little different as, from the generic mana that Rasputin can provide, but overall, Rasputin is a very unique design on a card, and I don't think it is in good tier. I think this would be like a C+ maybe commander, playable but sort of memey. But yeah, if you want this effect, there's not really a more direct representation of it, and Angus, Jake, is kind of the same way.
Yeah, so you have Bant here, green, blue, and white for Summon Legend 2/2 here, and it has another unique tap ability. So for Bant, again, white, green, blue, and tap, creatures attack and block as normal, but none deal any damage during combat. All attacking creatures are still tapped. Use this ability anytime before attack damage is dealt. So this is a fog effect. It's just essentially fog on a creature. comes from a time, again, when the game was very early in development, and this set, again, just like the previous card, is Legends. You aren't going to find a card like Angus Mackenzie. You're not going to find a card with this built-in fog ability, because it's a very trolly ability. In a lot of ways, Angus ends up being at the helm of a group hug deck, or just a turbo fog deck, where it's just gonna essentially like mill people out, time people out, just like, or not time people out, but just draw out the game, and then you end up winning again with something like a Thassa's Oracle or a Jace. If
you want turbo fog on a commander, Angus is going to be your best option. 3 CMC is really nice. 3 CMC to activate the ability is really nice. It's a very memey card. If your meta is attack heavy, it's going to be great. If your meta is not attack heavy, it's not going to be great. I loved playing turbo fog, Jake, back when it was a standard deck, and you know, control matchups were tough for me because I was sitting there with a bunch of prevent combat damage that was never coming through. And then when they needed to, you know, get the critical damage through or whatever, they were just able to counter the fog effect. But Angus has this repeatable fog effect that's very effective. I think Jake did a piece of this card. Is also, the art looks like Tim the Sorcerer from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And so there's a little bit of like meme added on top of the ridiculousness.
Little like overlap in fandom as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an expensive card. There's not really a comparison though for Angus. And so if you want your turbo fog effect, proxy up Angus and bring him to a table near you.
The colors on him are so good as well, because you're able to protect him with like a lightning greaves, and there's counter magic in those colors as well.
Gwendolyn is an interesting card with interesting art. Grixis commander that taps to have a target player discard a card at random, and you can only use the ability during your turn. Overall, having that repeatable can add up over time, but it's not a very strong commander. If you want to play a Grixis commander that's going to let you force players to discard cards, might we suggest that you get Nicol Bolas the Ravager, because the commander itself is going to provide you many more options. It's going to be in the same colors, similar ability, if that's what you're going for. But Jake, overall, Gwendolyn fairly humble.
Yeah, it definitely falls in the tier of humble generals. Again, scarcity is a big important thing to keep in your mind when we're looking at a lot of these cards, when we're looking at a lot of reserve list cards. Yeah, 3/5 for 4. The 2 black even puts me off the card even more, just because it's, you know, a very specific mana cost. You're going to be able to do this in EDH, no problem, but it really does come down to, is the card powerful enough that you even want it at the helm of your deck? Again, the Nicol Bolas you just showed off, you flip it to the other side, you have a Planeswalker on it that does a slew of abilities as well. That's like a lot more potent. It has velocity attached to it. It has, you know, return effects attached to it. It has damage and removal attached to it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so much more going on.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Let's go back to Gwendolyn though. It is an effect that if you wanted to, you could use this ability over and over. Like, unlike some of the cards that we're going to talk about on this list, there isn't a huge intensive mana cost that Gwendolyn has in order to use the ability. But if you wanted to target down one opponent and just make them discard all their cards at random, I could see it having some appeal. But just in the grand scheme of things, you don't really need the card at the helm of your deck. There are better options out there, clearly better options.
Reminds me of Turgrid's Lantern, to look at cards that were printed more recently. When I've played the Lantern onto the battlefield on the artifact side, it's a repeatable, you know, discard-ish effect. They do have options with the Lantern. This does force the discard of a card, and not only force the discard of a card, but a random card. That's really nice. But yeah, overall, this is one on the list where, you know, with Angus, there's an argument to be made that he is set up well to be a great commander. With, you know, Rasputin, same thing. He's set up well to have a unique effect and be a potentially great commander. Gwendolyn, for me, a little short, but she is the 3rd most expensive commander currently as of, you know, August 2021 when we're shooting this.
100%. And a lot of that, again, and you mentioned this just so briefly, is because of that art. Next up, we're going to talk about Sliver Queen, and this is Wooburg. Every single color represented on this card for 7/7, so 5 for 7/7. Sliver Queen counts as a sliver, obviously. It is a legend, and for 2, put a Sliver token into play. Treat this token as a 1/1 colorless creature. If you know Slivers, you know that that ability is going to be magnificent. The more Slivers that you have on the battlefield, it's going to cause triggers to go off, it's going to cause all sorts of great effects, and it's going to have all the abilities in the world because of all the different Slivers. The question is this reserve list card worth it as your commander? I think there are better Slivers. It's amazing in the 99, but there are better Slivers at the helm of your deck that are going to cost less.
Yeah, there's always the discussion of which of the legendary Slivers is best. You know, is it the Cascade one? Is it the Indestructible one? Is it the Tutor one? I personally would think the Tutor one is the best, because then you can just go get Sliver Queen and have this repeatable Sliver machine. Jake, for me personally, this card, this was one of the first pieces of art that I ever saw of MTG when I started playing as a young man, and so this immediately drew me in. I was already a kid that, you know, like loved Starship Troopers and stuff like that, so big scary bugs was already just a very cool thing to me, and so Sliver Queen has always had a special place in my heart because of that. Do I think this card is worth it as the commander? Probably not, but out of any of the cards on our list, this being the 4th most expensive potential commander, I think of the 8 cards we're covering, this card has the most validity of being a card in your collection, because if you do want a Sliver deck, it's in the 99, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, 100% in the 99. Like, if you have it, it goes in the deck. It doesn't necessarily, like we said, have to be the commander, but a very strong, very potent card. And as we've seen, you know, with recent Horizon sets, you know, new Slivers get added. It's something that, you know, is a very popular tribe in Commander, and so Wizards of the Coast knows this. Yeah, next we have a big scarcity play here, Portal 3 Kingdoms card.
The Warrior Queen herself, the lady, I don't want to mispronounce that name, so I'm not even going to try, but our Warrior Queen.
Zurong.
Yeah, Zurong, I'm not really sure. A green and 4 other for a 4/3, Jake. 5 for a 4/3 that's got horsemanship, and if you're not familiar, horsemanship is like shadow a little bit. They can only be blocked by creatures with horsemanship. So for all intents and purposes, Lady Warrior Queen is unblockable, but a 5 mana 4/3 unblockable, Jake, what do you think? Worth the hundreds of dollars that this scarcity play will cost you?
No, and you have to let me know, is this our card on the list that is not reserve list?
This is the only card on the list that is not reserve list.
Got it. So this is going to be like a 3 visits. This is going to be like an Imperial Recruiter. This is going to be like a Grim Tutor. We will see a reprint of this card at some point in the future. It might just appear as like a showcase variant. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe it ends up in a secret layer, or maybe it just ends up as like an uncommon in like a random set. Right. And then the price goes all the way down to like $5 or $6. This card is 1,000,000% not worth it, in my opinion, at this price. I think this is the kind of card that's very cool to old collectors. I think the original version will always hold a premium. Yeah. I think it's really neat. I loved about these sets when they had the sword and the shield next to the power and toughness on the cards. That was when I first started playing. I had some Portal cards that had that on the cards, and I thought that was really neat. And as a kid, I didn't know the difference, but yeah, dude, it's a really interesting card. But again, an unblockable 4/3 for 5 in green. I mean, like Omnath comes to mind, Thrun the Last Troll comes to mind. There's a lot of mono green generals that are just far and away better than this card. And I mean, it doesn't even have any like protection built into it. It's very, very medium.
Yeah, agreed. I do think this is one, Jake, that we'll see back as an uncommon at some point, you know, when we revisit Portal for some reason. I don't know when and if that would happen, but it is the most humble of the cards. It is the only non-reserve list card in the top 8 most expensive commanders. Few $100, but it's completely based on scarcity. After that, Jake, we go back to our Legends set, giving us a pretty cool Naya commander, a red, a green, and a white, and 4 other for our 2/4 Hazazon Tamar. On your next upkeep after Hazazon is put into play, you put X token Sand Warriors into play, where X is the number of lands under your control. All of the warriors are 1/1 white, green, and red creatures. And if Hazazon leaves play, all Sand Warriors also have to leave play. But, I mean, as far as go-wide commanders in colors with all of the best anthems, this card could actually be pretty bomb.
Yeah, and it's in the right colors to ramp up, so you can have tons of lands whenever you do play it. Again, a 2/4 for 7 is a pretty expensive card when it leaves. All of your Sand Warriors leave as well. I still personally file it into the realm of pretty humble for the colors.
You know, Hazazon, I think, is preceded now by cards like Alta, Atlas, Polani, and this is what Jake was getting at, is that the Naya commanders now, I mean, Atla puts on egg creature tokens on the battlefield, and when an egg dies, you just get the first creature that's in your library. You just go down digging, and the first creature that you come to, it goes right onto the battlefield. And I think I would rather have that nine times out of 10 more than, you know, a 1/1 for every land I control once.
Yeah, for sure. And again, you do have to think with commander tax as well. Once this is removed, it's going to cost 9 and then 11 and 13 and so on. That's a pretty hefty tax right out the gate for a 2/4. No protection built in. He pretty much folds to board wipe as well. And this is just really interesting. This is more fun to me, right? Like, you get this egg that when it dies, you get to go, you know, find a creature card. It might be something small, it might be something insane, who knows. But yeah, it just kind of speaks to where the game has gone. You know, a lot of the cards we're talking about in this list came out in 1994, and, you know, as of the filming of this video, we're in August of 2021. So you could just see where the game really has gone. But even with the less powerful effects, these old cards, just because they are reserve list, have such a hefty price tag. The next card we're going to talk about is Jund, and it is Aiden Oakenshield, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green for a legend, a 1/2 for 3, and it has red, green, black. Tap, select 1 creature from your graveyard and place it in your hand. So it has a really nice recursion effect.
With this video, we really tried to find budget alternatives to these expensive commanders if you wanted something in the colors and with a similar ability. Some cases, like with Polani, creating egg tokens, you know, creating tokens that go and get creatures, other things like that, we were able to find an approximation for a Naya commander that would be creating tokens onto the battlefield and giving you creatures as a result of it. Jake and I couldn't really find anything that was very, very close to Aiden Oakenshield, at least in the Jund colors. There's not really any recursion creatures in these colors that are going to be returning these creatures, you know, from your graveyard to your hand or from your graveyard to the battlefield and give you access to green, red, and black. Similarly, though, you've got other creatures. This one is in blue, but it's got the black there. And this is sort of that same thing, except it's way better and way cheaper. Scarab God's like under $20 now as a commander. And so for 4 mana, you're getting a creature card straight onto the battlefield. Even though it's a token now and it's a 4/4, you're still getting all of its abilities.
But it really does come down to, like, it is just a better card. But for those colors, you do have to go with Aiden. If you like want Jund and you want this ability, then you do have to pay the price for it. But again, none of the cards that we're talking about on this list, even Angus Mackenzie, which is like Turbo Fog, none of the cards that we're talking about on this list are even in the top tier, like, commander decks as the general. So they're all in essentially a tier of casual play as it is, and you don't really need any of them, especially at the massive price that they hold.
Yeah. In our 8th slot, as the 8th most expensive current commander to obtain and play with, it's Tetsuo Mizawa, a blue, a black, and a red for a 3/3, so 3/3 for 3, not bad. You got to pay 4 mana, that double black, red, and a blue, and tap it to destroy a target tapped creature or a target blocking creature. So it's very, very specific. Also, as a side note, Tetsuo can't be the target of auras. That's, you know, beneficial, I guess. You won't have to get any sort of pacifism on Tetsuo.
No Darksteel Mutation, which is a very good card.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So that's good. It's almost like a general that's going to be a head turner. It's a pimp factor. You could say that about any of these cards. People are going to be like, oh, somebody bought a legend today. But most likely with this effect, and I'm not saying that the deck can't be absolutely mean and Grixis colors, this isn't going to be like the premier general for you. I think it's really fun if you have like an Anger in the graveyard or like a Fury on the battlefield. What? My Fury, geez, Fervor. But anything that's going to give it haste is going to be really interesting, right? So you're going to be able to come in, use the ability. But again, the ability is pretty niche, man. It's pretty narrow.
Yeah, I hate when you have to wait for your opponents to do something to make it work correctly. We looked for an approximation of Tetsuo in the colors. We couldn't find anything that included red, so we're going to go from Grixis down to Dimir for Grim Grin Corpseborn. That bottom ability, whenever it attacks, you destroy a creature straight up that the defending player controls, and he gets a +1/+1 counter. Now, he does enter the battlefield tapped, and he doesn't untap during your untap, and you got to sack a creature to put a +1/+1 counter on it and untap it. But if you're building this deck, that's not going to be that difficult for you to do. And so as far as like approximate, you know, budget versions of Tetsuo, Jake, I think this one's not too terribly far off.
Yeah, it's okay, and it does put you into a pretty interesting strategy of like sacrificing creatures, which is historically very, very strong in Commander as well. But yeah, Tetsuo, again, another one of these cards where you're paying for the effect, you're paying for this old scarce card, and at the end of the day, the effect and the scarcity does not equal power level.
Those are the 8 most expensive commanders that exist right now. It's kind of crazy that, Jake, because of the reserve list, these cards that their power level is so low now, but the price of them is so high.
Yeah, dude, the ones that I like the most, and I'll just have to say again, are like Angus, just because it's so specific and it will never be printed on a creature again in that capacity, in my opinion. And then also the Sliver Queen, which is going to work either as a commander or in the 99 nicely.
Yeah, I like Hazazon a lot. I think that if that card was easily obtainable, that's one that I would at the very least experiment with and see if it could be a good go wide strategy. Recently, I've really liked playing Maya, Bredegard Protector, and that's a landfall token creator plus an anthem all built into one creature. So that's sort of a budget alternative to Hazazon there. Hey, if you like the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you've made it this far, we would really appreciate it if you did that. Other than that, Jake, I am tapped out.
I'm tapped out as well, and we will see you later, nerds.